Hello guys, it's Kimberly again, and we are back, and we will be working on this vanity. Over here in the corner, you guys can probably see I have that piece covered up. I don't want to splatter any paint on that. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to kind of jump on with us since I'm running a little behind tonight. And I just going to give you guys just a moment while I gather a couple of things, and we can get started on what I've done to this vanity and where we'll be going with this vanity. Let me grab a couple of items while we're allowing some people to jump on and join with us. Like I say, I'm running a little tad behind here tonight, but it's not abnormal. Sometimes I do, and I shut this drawer. And, yeah. I got it wedged in there. Oh, really? My pencil's not strong enough. Normally I use. Now come on. Let me grab a different device. Normally I am using a little screwdriver, and I can just pull these little gadgets out. Come on. So I pushed it back in there a little bit far. It's rocking, but this is what happens when you take the hardware off. I had to take the hardware off in order to get the veneer off all the way. Obviously the veneer popped off. If you're joining me tonight, welcome. Thank you for joining our broadcast. And I mean, it's not necessary that I pull it out, but I need to get it out. And I don't want to shove that one in too far. Sometimes when you put them in there, the little booger don't want to open back up. Well, what's the common word they say? Well, for Pete's sakes, right? So anyway, no biggie. I'm going to paint around it because I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what I have done. Now I did come in here and pull off the veneer, obviously, very similar to the piece we did on Tuesday night. And first and foremost, welcome and thank you for joining our broadcast. My name is Kimberly. I am going to put my glasses on so I can see if you guys are with us tonight. We thank you for joining us. Tuesday, Thursday night, our video broadcast. We are working on, again, another 101 project from beginning to end. I am with Unique Finds and Furniture Designs. I am a furniture artist here in Kernersville, North Carolina, and I feature Dixie Belle Chalk Paint products. So thank you again for jumping on with us tonight. There's several things that I started when I first started looking at a piece. Obviously, the first thing I do is clean it. So I do have my White Lightning cleaner here. And at the bottom, you can see I did put a little bit of a repair on the bottom down here. The reason I did that is a lot of times if you run your hand across something and it's super smooth, paint's gonna go on super smooth. If you run your fingers across it and you can feel texture, you're gonna see texture. So just bear that in mind. Anything that you can feel with the hand, you're gonna see with the eye the minute you put paint on it. So I just wanna give you guys that little bit of information. I've been doing this since probably I've been painting and varnishing and working with furniture for at least 20 years, if not more. And so I've used a lot of Bondo, I've used a lot of repair products. Most of my work before was refinishing it to wood because I was working with sailboats, yachts, motorboats, and those sort of things. And so I did a lot of teak work, a lot of mahogany, all different kinds of hardwoods, if you will. And with that said, some of those hardwoods will stain, and in this case there's some stain issues. So this is a red cherry color, and when you use have a red cherry color, you're going to have a bleed through, so you need a stain blocker. So first thing you always do, you clean your piece completely. I use White Lightning Cleaner in my case because I do feature the Dixie Belle Paint products. However, there are other ways of cleaning your pieces. Some people use 50-50 vinegar water kind of thing, and just a cleaner of your choice will work. But make sure you always start with a clean piece and then begin your project. So I did pop the veneer off. Anytime a veneer is loose and peeling, I get rid of it. If it's a small chip, there's a little small chip over here on the corner. If it's a small chip, that's no big deal. I can come in and use our Dixie mud and I can repair that, and that's what I will make those repairs with. That white that you see on the bottom is Dixie mud, and I'm gonna sand that and show you guys how easy this is to sand. And like I say, one of the things you want to bear in mind, if you can feel it with your hand, you're going to see it with your eye. So this was a little bit rough at the bottom, so I came in and I put my Dixie mud on it to smooth it out so that my paint will glide on smoothly. So that was my process there. Now you can't see it, but on the piece, all the red areas of this wood, I have treated, even inside the drawer, on this top edge, I treated with the Boss. I use clear Boss because for me, it's better when I'm distressing. I don't see white underneath. It comes in two colors. It's the Dixie Belle Boss. It comes in white and it comes in clear. My preference is the clear. It just makes it easier for me and I don't have to distress and some other color come out from underneath. However, if you need two-tone paint colors when you're distressing and you want some white to pop back through, then the Boss in the white will work perfect for that because you're going to have some white along the edges when you distress your piece. So it's really a preference of yours, and but it is a bleed blocker. So that's why I used Boss. You can't see it on here. It dries clear, and it is all over this piece. So I cleaned it. I lightly sanded it, and then I put my Boss on it. So this is pretty much primed and ready to go. This, on this area, there is no primer. You can see that's just the wood that was underneath the veneer. A lot of times the wood underneath the veneer is just as good as the veneer. They just put a thin coat of veneer on it because it changed the look of the wood. I'm going to run with this because first and foremost, I'm going to paint it. And with that said, I've got my mist bottle here. I have a little sanding block here, which I was going to show you how easy it is to sand our Dixie mud. It's super, super easy. And then I have two colors of paint here that I am going to implement on this piece. Or so I think I'm going to implement. You know, you can always jump ship and do something else if you'd like, because obviously I did it in my last piece. So if it speaks to you or isn't speaking to you, you have time to change it around. But also the reason I picked the two colors I'm working with is because if you guys remember the yellow piece I did, I still have plenty of this beautiful transfer. Look at those blues. I've got beautiful roses and stuff that I'm envisioning to go with this piece. So hence I chose, because of my florals in this, you can see the colors of the florals. So with those colors is what made me kind of land on Savannah Mist, and I also have the Sea Glass. So it's a good possibility I'm going to do a blend of these two colors because I really like them. Sea Glass is one of my favorites. I did the last vanity in Sea Glass, but I don't want to do the whole vanity the same. I try not to copy the same one I've already done. I try to make them all look a little unique and different in some way or fashion. So I do have the mirror. The mirror is right here, and the mirror has almost like, and I'm going to pull it over so you guys can see. Now what I did to the vanity, I also did to the mirror. So this is the mirror. It has some wheat like on the top. So it has some decorative wheat, which was natural to the piece. And so I did the exact same thing on this mirror, which is cleaned it, and then I lightly sanded it. You don't have to. A lot of times what I'll do is when I'm cleaning it, after I cleaned it the first time, I'll come back in with my White Lightning cleaner, and I will use what I call a Scotch-Brite. And let me see if I can grab one so I can show you what I'm talking about here. haven't been using. So here is my Scotch-Brite, and what I do is I use this to lightly sand my piece. I use my, so I almost like wet sand it, if that makes sense. I used to do that a lot on my boats and stuff, and so that's what I did with this piece as well. So this is actually the mirror for it, and so same process. So I cleaned it, I bossed it, and now it's ready to paint along with my piece is ready to paint. So this one does have a mirror, and it goes on. I'm going to move this gal back out of my way. And it goes obviously on the top of this. This is not mounted. Now the top piece, I am going to paint it just because she did have some imperfections on her. And when I paint her, I think I'm going to paint it in the coffee bean. You guys know that's kind of my go-to color for a top. You could also stain this, but if I was going to stain it, I would probably go ahead and use a safe stripper and clean off any varnish or anything that would have been on there, because I get a nice clean effect with it. So these are kind of the process. These are the steps that I kind of go through and to get to where I am right now. So the veneer is off, got a little of the Dixie mud on, and I do have my oval medium brush. This is kind of my go-to brush. This is a great blender brush. If it's heavy for you and you like the flat brush, which we have, and I use it often. In fact, I put my my Boss on with that one. So it went on really well. They're synthetic brushes, but for blending, this is my go-to one. And I did some blending this afternoon on a couple of pieces that, you know, they get bumped around some when they're moved and different places. I'm gonna get back on my knees just because it's easier, because I'm gonna get down here and show you guys, and I'll try to get the video down where you can see on top of our Dixie mud. And it has been on here overnight, so I'll give you an idea of how that looks. And maybe I could just kind of bring you guys in and point you down here so you guys can kind of get a look-see of the bottom here. And so this is I don't want to tuck that in too far. So that is our Dixie mud down there, and it is nice and dry, and it does dry and harden really well. And move that out of my way, and let me grab my little, this is a well-used, this isn't our sponge, this is a 3M sponge that I get from the hardware store. Normally I use my other one, but it's pretty fine, it's well loved. Obviously I've used it quite a bit, and so it's pretty fine at this point. So I'm just gonna come in here and show you guys. Most of the time I wear a mask, but this is so minor that I'm not even gonna worry about it. So we did make some changes today, moved some product around, and did some different things. You see how easy that the Dixie mud really, really sands nicely. Nothing too tremendous about it. So I just kind of come in here and clean off where it felt a little rough to me. So I knew I would see it, but then again, I'm going to be applying a transfer, and there's a good possibility I might put some transfer down here, because a lot of times I'll do that. So pretty much that's the end. It's just what I want to do is just get it smooth to the touch, and as long as it's smooth to the touch, it means that the paint's going to go on very smoothly, which is the whole goal of putting your mud on. In this case, it's really mostly cosmetic. It's not so much for structure. This is not structural issues, obviously. It's just cosmetic. And I guess my daughter says, "You're such a perfectionist." And I'm like, well, I don't know. She sees that, but I think attention to detail is a plus. It just means everything to me when I'm working on my pieces. So I've come in here and I'm just kind of cleaning it up, making the edges smooth. Now, if you have a piece that you didn't do, and you can sometimes, you know, trick the eye with using different techniques. And let me grab me a towel here. I'm gonna clean that out of my way. Just kind of, I'm just going to use my wet water. This is nothing in this water bottle but water. So I'm just going to put that back in there because that probably belongs to one of my, so I'm just going to kind of mist my floor. I know it sounds crazy, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to mist my rag because I'm just going to clean that dust back off. I don't want to paint over any dust. So I'm just going to come in here and clean it up. And no, I know a lot of people say, oh, do you need a primer? In this case, I don't need a primer. Really, my mud is going to create, kind of work like that. And since I did put the, Boss on, it really acts as a primer as well as a bleed blocker, so I don't really need a primer in that case either. So, I mean, it's just really a preference. If you want to use a primer, depending on your piece, you can. The one thing about, I'm just cleaning up this dust because I don't want this dust in my piece. And make sure that I got it up off of away from my brush, because sometimes, you know, I get my brush bristles down there and you might pick up what's on there. So in this case, I've pretty much got everything ready. I did take the hardware off, so I'm debating whether I want to leave that hardware on or take it off since the rest of the hardware is off. And so that's probably what I will end up doing. Grab my little gun here. So I'm gonna, sorry for the bobble. So this is just kind of how I redo my pieces. Most of the time, most of you guys know, most of the time, I'm not one to take my hardware off, but since it's off on the rest, pardon me again, I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this off just because it's basically off on everything else. Might as well pull it. But chances are I'm gonna paint it anyway because that's just kind of how I do. And I'm not gonna worry about bleeding underneath this because my hardware is gonna be under it. So I'm not worried about it. I just took it off to kind of match the rest of my piece, where we're going with that. Make sure that when you get any dust or dirt or grime or anything like that on your piece after you are have prepared it, I always try to make sure my dust is gone. Now I do have the Boss on, so you can see that. And then I'm ready to get started painting. So that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't normally, one of the things I don't normally wait all the time. I just kind of roll with it and run with it. So I'm painting it mostly in Savannah Mist and our Sea Glass. I love these colors. I'll probably end up doing a blend. And this bare wood, just bear in mind your bare wood might absorb a little bit, so it might take a little bit more paint. I'm not really concerned about it too much because I'm definitely going to have probably some florals out of this beautiful transfer. This is the Cosmic Roses. I put it on that yellow piece that I had worked on, and I've got some beautiful florals left out of this that I think will look lovely on this piece. So it's going to be some blues, and we'll see where we go with it because I always kind of change my mind around and add and do this or do that to it. So on my first coat, I'm most likely going to just do a whole coat in Savannah Mist. And you could, if you wanted to, just go ahead and put your Sea Glass on here and use it as a primer if you would, because your wood is going to absorb a little bit. I'm not really going to, it's not going to bother me. I'm going to have enough paint, obviously, with an 8 ounce to paint this and several other pieces. So I'm not overly concerned about it. So if it does absorb a little bit more, I'm okay with that. So it's super smooth. Your paint should glide on and look really nice. And first coat is, we're going over dark with a light. So there is a possibility you would maybe have to do 2 coats, but that just really depends. When I'm blending, I don't normally do 2 coats because when I blend 2 colors together, that second coat is actually going to be the blend of 2 colors. So in that case, I won't necessarily need to add a second coat because when I'll be blending. So if you miss any, you're going to catch it all with your blend techniques. You're going to come right back in and catch it. And most of the time I have baby wipes. Baby wipes are your friend and water is your friend in a case like this. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to paint the top of this right now because the top is going to be in coffee bean. Coffee bean is almost as dark as this top, so those are going to be some nice contrast there. So just let you know that. And did I do with my brush? I took it off, hauled her away. So got my brush here. Always take your brush, always mist your brush, dampen your brush. I don't know if you guys missed that little tip, but I always start with a damp brush when I'm working. And I'm gonna start on the raw wood and go ahead and give it a coat and let it absorb. So always, always, always start with your brush damp. And that's just how I'm gonna begin. I was looking to see if I had something over here besides my little stool that we can get started on, but I'll just go ahead and grab her. So again, if you're new here, thank you for joining us, welcome. And we're gonna get rolling here on painting with Dixie Belle. And then this is my Savannah Mist. I did stir her up really well, and this paint was stored indoors, so my temperature is not too bad here in North Carolina. It was kind of nice today. Let me readjust my camera so maybe you guys can get a little better look-see. I don't know, maybe that'll be better. So it was pretty nice. It was a great day to run. I run furniture all day to different locations. It's something. I have several different vendor spaces that I'm running furniture to and from. And my shirt's all big and baggy, sorry. It's all right. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started with my Savannah Mist, and I'm gonna start on my bare wood. And see, when I sit on this stool, even though it's up high, and I love that my husband got it for me, I'm not used to it, so I'm always on the floor. So I always try to get on the floor. Notice I'm not adding my water. I will not add any water until my second coat. And I will let my coats dry overnight. And the reason I let it dry overnight, and I'm gonna get back on the floor, is because when you are blending colors together, you need your base coat or your base color, if you wanna call it that, you need it dry. You don't want to be using water and pulling it back off. So just that's a little bit of information there, little tidbits along the way that we use. And I'm not using water on this raw wood. I'm just going to get my coat going. So obviously I'm getting amazing coverage. There's nothing new about that with Dixie Belle. Obvious, they're the top selling paint product in the US right now, and there's a good reason for it because they are amazing. Today I couldn't have done this with any other paint. I made some repairs on I had a buffet and it had been marred, and it was a blend of 3 colors, I'll have you know, and it was bumped down to the bare wood. So in most cases, you would have to just kind of, so it was on the front like this, it was beat down to the bare wood, and I was able to feather it out. What I mean by feather is take a sanding device, whether you're using one of those blocks or what, and I feathered that edge out, and then was able to come in and blend those 3 coats over an already finished piece, and you would have never known that it was done. Now that's not something that you can say with many paints out there. That much I can tell you right now. I'm gonna just kind of push that in just a tad so that I'm not painting the inside of the edge. So I'm just gonna come in here and get busy and show you guys how easy. Look at the coverage. And I might have to pull you in again because I want you to see the coverage and why this is such an amazing paint product. So maybe you can see better there. Sorry for the bobbling you all around. I'm going over this extremely dark red paint. Not that I need perfect coverage, but that's what you get. So here you are looking at me painting over this very cherry color, and it's getting the coverage in just a single coat. So I really don't want to paint up in here. In fact, I'm going to take my baby wipe because I'm going to let that lip, I'm going to paint that lip. Actually, I'm going to paint this with our coffee bean. So don't really need paint on it. But sometimes I do get it on there, and that's when your baby wipes come in handy. Shut this down. So here we're just going to get going, get some paint on this piece. This is Savannah Mist, guys, that I'm working with. So it's one of our lighter blues. And I'm going to go over our mud here that I feathered and